Millionaire hears someone screaming for help in a cabin, but when he discovers who it is, he freezes. Marcus Crawford pressed the accelerator, trying to escape the storm brewing in the sky over the countryside of North Carolina. The businessman had left Charlotte heading for family business, but the torrential rain forced him to seek shelter on the deserted road of the Blue Ridge Mountains. That's when he heard the desperate screams coming from an old, dilapidated structure beside the road. Someone was calling for help, with a voice that cut through the noise of the rain and wind. Marcus hesitated for a moment, looking through the window of his luxury car. But the screams intensified, full of pain and desperation. "Help! Someone help me!" The female voice echoed among the old planks of the cabin. Marcus turned off the engine and ran toward the screams, soaking his Italian suit as he approached the entrance of the abandoned structure. The door was ajar, creaking in the strong wind. He pushed it slowly and entered. What he saw made him stop completely. On the dusty wooden floor, a blonde woman was lying down, clearly in labor. She wore a grayish-blue dress, wet from the rain, leaking through the hole-ridden roof. Her hands clutched her enormous belly as she moaned in pain. But she wasn't just any woman. It was Rebecca, his ex-wife. The same Rebecca he had thrown out of the house 8 months ago after a terrible fight. The woman he had accused of betrayal. The woman whose tears and pleas he had completely ignored before telling her to disappear from his life forever. And now she was there, pregnant and alone, about to give birth in the middle of a storm. "Marcus," she whispered, recognizing his silhouette against the light coming through the door. Her green eyes filled with tears. You came." Marcus was paralyzed. Thousands of thoughts raced through his head in seconds. The fight that had separated them, the accusations he had made, the way he had thrown her out of the house without even letting her grab her things. And now there she was, carrying a child that could be his. "Rebecca, what are you doing here?" he managed to ask, still standing in the doorway as if afraid to approach. "My car broke down on the road," she spoke between contractions. "I was going to the hospital in Charlotte when the storm started. I looked for shelter and—" She screamed in pain again. Marcus noticed there was no car on the road, only his. But at that moment his doubts took a back seat to her desperation. "I need to get you to the hospital," he said, taking off his jacket and finally approaching. "There's no time," Rebecca cried. "The baby. He wants to be born now." Marcus knelt beside her, not knowing what to do. His hands trembled as he looked at the woman he had once loved more than anything in life. The same woman he had destroyed with his cruel words and blind distrust. "Rebecca, you need to tell me." "This child," he began, but she interrupted him with another scream of pain. "Not now, Marcus. Please help me. I can't do this alone." Marcus took off his tie and rolled up his shirt sleeves. He knew nothing about childbirth, but he knew he couldn't leave her there suffering. Not again. Not after everything he had already done to her. "Tell me what you need," he said, trying to keep his voice calm despite the panic he felt. "Clean water, something to cut the cord. Towels or clean cloths," she whispered, leaning against one of the cabin walls. Marcus looked around. The cabin was old, with several gaps in the walls that let the rain in. There were some loose planks on the floor, and pieces of broken roof tiles scattered around. It wasn't exactly the ideal place for a birth. He took off his shirt, leaving only the t-shirt underneath, and spread the shirt on the ground so she could lie on something cleaner. Then he ran to the car to get the bottle of mineral water he always carried, and the first aid kit that was in the trunk. When he returned, Rebecca was breathing heavily, trying to control the contractions. "Marcus," she called as he knelt beside her again, "you need to know something. Not now, Rebecca. Let's first take care of the baby." "No. I need to speak," she insisted, gripping his hand tightly. "All these months, I tried to tell you about the pregnancy." Marcus stopped rummaging in the first aid kit and looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I sent letters, phone calls, messages," she groaned, as another contraction came. "Your secretary always said you didn't want to talk to me, that you had blocked all my contacts." Marcus felt his stomach sink. He had indeed asked Sharon, his secretary, to block all of Rebecca's contacts after the separation. He wanted to forget her completely. erase any trace of their marriage. "What letters?" he asked. "I tried to tell you about the baby as soon as I found out. It was still early in the pregnancy." She stopped to take a deep breath. "But you didn't want to know anything that came from me." Marcus vaguely remembered Sharon mentioning some collection letters and legal documents that arrived in Rebecca's name. He always had them returned unopened, thinking they were her attempts to ask for alimony or divide assets. "Rebecca, I didn't know," he began. "The baby is yours, Marcus," she said, looking directly into his eyes. "I know you don't believe it. I know you think I cheated on you, but this child is yours." Marcus felt the world spin. After the fight that separated them, he was sure she had been unfaithful. His own mother had shown him compromising photos. There were witnesses who confirmed seeing Rebecca with another man. How could she now say the baby was his? "Rebecca, you can't expect me to believe." "Please," she shouted, more from pain than anger. "Now is not the time for this. The baby is coming." Marcus saw she was right. Regardless of who the father was, there was a child to be born and a woman who needed help. He pushed all his doubts to the back of his mind and focused on the present moment. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out, now continuing. "All right, Rebecca, let's do this together," he said, taking her hand. "Tell me when the next contraction comes." Over the next 2 hours, Marcus found himself doing things he never imagined he would do. He helped Rebecca breathe through the contractions, wiped the sweat from her face with water from the bottle, held her hand firmly when the pain became unbearable. During a pause between the strongest contractions, Rebecca began to speak again. "Marcus, do you remember this cabin?" He looked around, trying to remember where he had seen that place before. There was something familiar about that old building, but in the midst of the desperation and the rain, he couldn't identify what. "This is where we met," she whispered. Marcus felt his heart stop for a second. Now he remembered. That was old Mr. John's workshop, a mechanic who had worked on the road for decades. 7 years ago, Marcus's car had broken down exactly at that spot. John wasn't there, but his niece Rebecca, who was visiting her uncle, offered to help. She was a nursing student at the time and was spending her vacation in the countryside. Marcus had been enchanted by her simple beauty, her gentle way of speaking, and her willingness to help a stranger. They spent the whole afternoon talking while waiting for the tow truck to arrive. That was the cabin where they fell in love. That was where he asked her to be his girlfriend 3 months later, when he purposely returned just to see her again. That was where they had their first kiss. "Why did you come here?" Marcus asked, confused. "It wasn't an accident," Rebecca admitted, breathing heavily. "When the doctor said the baby could come at any moment, I drove here. But why? Because—" she groaned with another contraction. "Because I wanted our son to be born in the place where our love began, even if you weren't here to see it." Marcus felt tears burning his eyes. Even after everything he had done to her, even after the cruel accusations and the way he had thrown her out of the house, she still held affection for the memories they had built together. "Rebecca, about that fight," he began. "No, Marcus, not now," she interrupted him. "It's in the past. Now what matters is our baby. Our baby." She kept referring to the child as if it were theirs, despite all the doubts Marcus had planted between them. The next contraction was more intense than all the others. Rebecca cried out in pain, and Marcus realized the moment was arriving. "I think I can see the head," he said, trying to stay calm. "It hurts so much," Rebecca wept. "I don't know if I can." "Yes, you can. You're the strongest woman I know." Marcus held her hand firmly. "Remember when you took care of me for 3 days when I had pneumonia? You didn't sleep a single minute." "You remember that?" she asked, surprised. "I remember everything, Rebecca. Every moment we spent together." Even though it was true, Marcus knew his good memories had been overshadowed by the hurt and distrust that had grown in his heart in the last months of their marriage. He had become a bitter, jealous man who saw betrayal where there was only affection. "Push, Rebecca. Just a little more," he encouraged. With 3 more contractions, the baby was finally born. Marcus held the tiny, wet child in his trembling hands, unable to believe what he was seeing. It was a boy, a perfect boy, with wet dark hair and eyes still closed. Marcus cut the umbilical cord with the scissors from the first aid kit and wrapped the baby in his own t-shirt. "Is he okay?" Rebecca asked, exhausted. "He's perfect," Marcus whispered, his voice choked. "He's perfect, Rebecca." Marcus looked at the baby's little face and his heart tightened. The child had the exact shape of his nose, the same square chin, the same small birthmark on the forehead that Marcus had inherited from his grandfather. There was no doubt. That was his son. "Rebecca," he said, his voice breaking. I'm sorry." "For what?" "For everything. For not believing you. For throwing you out of the house. For not being here during the entire pregnancy." Rebecca tried to sit up, still weak after the birth. "Marcus, there are things you don't know about that fight." "What do you mean?" "Those photos your mother showed you," she began. Marcus remembered the photos perfectly. Mrs. Elizabeth, his mother, had shown up at the house one afternoon with an envelope full of photographs, showing Rebecca hugging an unknown man in a restaurant. The images seemed intimate, compromising. What about them? "The man in the photos was my cousin Jonathan. He had arrived from New York that day to tell me he had cancer." Marcus felt the floor drop out from under him. "What do you mean?" "Jonathan is my Aunt Sandra's son, you remember her?" Rebecca explained, still breathing with difficulty. "He came to ask me not to tell the family yet, because he didn't want to worry his elderly mother. He was scared, crying. I was just comforting my cousin." But there were witnesses," Marcus stammered. "People who said you were kissing—" "What people?" "My mother said the restaurant waiter confirmed you two looked intimate, and there was a neighbor who also saw you leaving the hotel." Rebecca shook her head sadly. "Marcus, I never went to any hotel with Jonathan. And at the restaurant, the only intimate thing that happened was him crying on my shoulder while telling me about the diagnosis." Marcus held the baby in his arms, feeling his world collapse. For 8 months, he had lived believing Rebecca had betrayed him. For 8 months, he had cultivated anger and resentment based on lies. But why would my mother— "Your mother never liked me, Marcus. You know that." It was true. Mrs. Elizabeth had always been polite to Rebecca, but Marcus noticed the coldness, the subtle comments about her humble origins, about how she wasn't suitable for a successful businessman. "But she wouldn't lie about something like that," Marcus insisted, not wanting to believe his own mother would have fabricated a betrayal. "She didn't fabricate the photos, but she hired people to lie about what they saw," Rebecca revealed. "Jonathan told me later. Your mother approached him at the company where he works and offered him money to confirm we were lovers. And he accepted. No, Jonathan refused and called me to tell me everything. But your mother must have found other people willing to lie for money." Marcus felt nauseous. Everything made sense now. The witnesses who appeared so quickly. The way his mother seemed absolutely certain of the betrayal. Her insistence that he throw Rebecca out immediately without even giving her a chance to explain. "Why didn't you tell me this back then?" he asked. "I tried," Rebecca sighed. "The night of the fight, I begged you to listen to me. I said I could explain everything. But you were so furious, so certain I had betrayed you, that you wouldn't listen to a word." Marcus remembered that terrible night. He came home upset after seeing the photos and hearing the witnesses' accounts. Rebecca tried to approach him, tried to speak, but he yelled at her, called her a liar, a gold digger. "I told you about Jonathan," Rebecca continued. "I told you he was my cousin, that he was sick, but you said I was making up excuses." "Rebecca—" Marcus couldn't find words to express the magnitude of his guilt. "Later, when you threw me out of the house, I still tried to reach you. I went to your company several times, but your secretary never let me up. I sent letters explaining everything, but you never replied." Marcus vaguely remembered Sharon saying an insistent woman was trying to speak with him, but that she always found a way to spare him the bother. It never crossed his mind it was Rebecca trying to explain. "When I found out I was pregnant, I thought that would change everything, Rebecca continued, tears streaming down her face. I thought you'd be happy and give me a chance to explain the truth. Why didn't you try harder? I did, for months, until I realized you really didn't want to hear me. So I gave up and decided to raise our child alone. Marcus looked at the baby in his arms. His son, the son he almost never knew because of his own stubbornness and his mother's manipulation. Rebecca, I don't know how to apologize for all this. You don't need to apologize, Marcus. What's past is past. No, he said, louder than he intended, making the baby stir a little. I do need to apologize. I destroyed our family because of my insecurity and my inability to trust you. The rain outside began to let up, but Marcus barely noticed. He was absorbed in his own thoughts, trying to process everything he had discovered in the last few hours. Rebecca, how did you manage to support yourself during the entire pregnancy? I got a part-time job at a neighborhood clinic. The salary was small, but it was enough to pay for a tiny rented room and basic food. Marcus imagined Rebecca, pregnant and alone, working to survive while he lived comfortably in his mansion, believing he had been the victim of a betrayal. And the prenatal care, the exams? I did everything through the public health system. The doctors were great, they treated me very well. I only got worried a few times because the baby seemed stressed. Stressed? The doctor said babies can feel the mother's emotional stress during pregnancy. I tried to stay calm, but... She stopped, wiping her eyes. But it was hard. Being alone, scared, not knowing if you would ever meet your child. Marcus felt a pain in his chest that was almost physical. While he wallowed alone at home, convinced he was the victim of the situation, Rebecca spent sleepless nights worried about the baby's health, working even while pregnant, facing the entire pregnancy without emotional support. Did you try to contact my family, my father or my sister? Your father had died a few months before we found out about the pregnancy, remember? And your sister lives in Europe. Besides, if you yourself didn't want to talk to me, why would they listen to me? Marcus had forgotten that his father passed away shortly before their fight. Mr. William had always been a fair and thoughtful man. If he were alive, he certainly would have demanded that Marcus hear Rebecca's side before making any drastic decision. What about your family? He asked. My mother supported me, but she lives in rural Mississippi and can't help me financially. My brothers have their own struggles. Marcus knew Rebecca's humble family, hard-working and honest people, but who had always lived with difficulties. When they got married, he had offered to help his in-laws financially, but Rebecca always refused, saying she didn't want them to get used to a life that wasn't theirs. Now he understood that this humility and pride were traits that were part of Rebecca's personality. Even pregnant and abandoned, she hadn't turned to her family for help. The baby began to cry softly. Marcus looked at the little face and felt an immediate connection to that tiny creature who was a part of him. He must be hungry, Rebecca said. Can you breastfeed? I think so. Can you help me sit up properly? Marcus helped Rebecca lean better against the wall and handed her the baby. Seeing the woman he loved breastfeeding his newborn son was one of the most moving experiences of his life. Rebecca, he said softly, what name did you choose for him? William, she answered without hesitation. William Marcus. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. She had chosen his father's name and his own to name the child. Even after everything he had done to her, even after being abandoned throughout the entire pregnancy, she still honored her father-in-law's memory and held on to hope that one day they could be a family. Why William? He asked, though he knew the answer. Because your father was the only person in your family who always treated me with affection, she replied. In the last weeks of his life, when you two were fighting over business, he told me he hoped I would one day give him a grandson. Marcus remembered the fights he had with his father shortly before his death. Mr. William wanted him to be less ambitious, to value family and relationships more. Marcus at the time thought his father was getting sentimental because of his age. He also told me something strange, Rebecca continued. What? He told me to be careful with your mother, That she was capable of anything to maintain control over you. Marcus froze. His father had warned Rebecca about Mrs. Elizabeth. That meant he suspected his mother might try to sabotage their son's marriage. Do you think my father knew my mother was going to try to separate us? I don't know. But he seemed worried. He said your mother never accepted losing the influence she had over you after you married me. Marcus realized there had been signs he chose to ignore. His mother had indeed become more possessive after their wedding. She always made excuses to show up at the house unannounced. She always made subtle comments about how Rebecca didn't know how to take proper care of the house, or about how she wasn't sophisticated enough for the social circles he frequented. Rebecca, I need to tell you something, Marcus said, after a few minutes of silence. What? During these 8 months I couldn't forget you. Even believing you had betrayed me, even trying to hate you, I dreamed of you every night. Rebecca looked at him with surprise. It's true. I'd come home from work and expect to find you there. I'd make coffee for 2 in the morning without realizing it. I kept all your clothes that were left in the closet. Marcus, there's more. I went to the house where you lived frequently just to see if I could find you. I never knocked on the door. I never got out of the car, but I'd just sit there waiting to see you through the window. Rebecca began to cry. If you missed me, why didn't you try to talk to me? Out of pride, out of hurt, out of fear of discovering you really preferred another man, Marcus admitted. I chose to nurture the anger because it was easier than facing the possibility of having lost you forever. The baby had finished nursing and was sleeping in Rebecca's lap. Marcus stretched out his arms and she passed the child to him again. He looks just like you, she said with a tired smile. You think so? I'm sure. He has the same nose, the same chin. Even the mark on his forehead is the same. Marcus ran his finger gently over the birthmark on the baby's forehead. It was identical to his and to his father's, a mark of the Crawford family that passed from generation to generation. Rebecca, what happens now? What do you mean? I mean, he hesitated. Would you give me a second chance? Rebecca was silent for a long moment, looking at her son in his father's arms. Marcus, I love you. I never stopped loving you. But I can't go through the same pain again. You won't have to, I promise. How can I be sure? She asked. The next time your mother makes up some lie about me, how can I be sure you'll listen to me? It was a fair question. Marcus knew he had to prove he had changed, that he had learned from his mistakes. Because now I know the truth about her, he said, and because now I know what it's like to lose you. The rain outside had completely stopped. Sunlight began to stream through the cracks in the cabin, warming the room. Marcus, there's something I need to tell you, Rebecca said. What? I didn't come here by accident today. What do you mean? Didn't you say your car broke down? Rebecca shook her head. That was a lie. I came here on purpose. Marcus looked at her, confused. The doctor said the baby would be born in the next few days. Last night, when the mild contractions started, I decided to come here. But why? Because I wanted our son to be born in the place where our love began, she explained. Even if you weren't here to see it, I wanted him to be born in the most special place in my life. Marcus felt his heart tighten with emotion. But what if there wasn't enough time to get to the hospital afterward? I was willing to take the risk. I brought a basic first aid kit in the car, some towels. I was prepared to deliver the baby alone if I had to. Rebecca, that was very dangerous. I know. But it was important to me. I wish William had been born here. Marcus looked around the old cabin. Despite its run-down state, there really was something special about that place. It was where they had met, fallen in love, built the first moments of their love story. And you didn't expect me to show up? Honestly, part of me hoped you would, she admitted. Whenever I passed by here in the last few months, I would stop and stay a while, wondering if you ever came back here too. And I did come back, Marcus confessed. At least once a month I'd come here and just think about you. Really? Really. Especially on the hard days, when the longing was strong. I'd come here and remember our first meetings, how happy we were before everything got complicated. Dear listener, If you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The two fell silent for a few minutes, absorbed in their own memories and the emotions of the present moment. The baby slept peacefully in Marcus's arms, unaware of the drama his parents had lived through in recent months. "Marcus," Rebecca said softly, "there's something else you need to know." "What else?" "During the pregnancy, I wrote a diary telling everything I was feeling, everything I was going through. I wrote as if I were talking to you." "Really?" "Every day I wrote an entry about how the day went, how I was feeling, how the baby was developing. It was as if you were here with me." Marcus pictured Rebecca, alone in her little rented room, writing in a diary and pretending he was there to share the pregnancy experience. "Do you still have that diary?" "I do. It's in my bag over there in the corner." Marcus looked where she pointed and saw a small, simple bag leaning against the cabin wall. "May I read it?" "Of course. It was written for you, even though I didn't know if you'd ever read it." Marcus stood up carefully without waking the baby and went to get the bag. Inside, among some personal items, was a simple notebook with a floral cover. He opened it to the first page and read, "Day 1. Marcus, I found out today that I'm pregnant. I'm happy and scared at the same time. Happy because we always dreamed of having children together. Scared because I don't know how you'll react after everything that happened between us. I'll try to tell you tomorrow." Marcus turned the page. "Day 2. I tried to call you this morning, but your secretary said you couldn't take the call. I tried again in the afternoon, but she said the same thing. I'll try in person tomorrow." The following pages told of Rebecca's frustrated attempts to contact him, about the first morning sickness, about the fear of raising a child alone. Day 15. Marcus, today I went for the first ultrasound. The doctor said the baby is developing well. I brought a picture for you to see, even knowing you'll probably never see it. It's amazing how such a tiny person can bring so much hope and so much fear at the same time. Marcus found the ultrasound picture glued to the page, a small grainy image, but one where the shape of a baby could clearly be seen. He kept reading, tears streaming down his face. Day 32. Today we found out it's a boy. Marcus, we're going to have a son. I laughed and cried at the same time in the doctor's office. I've already chosen the name, William Marcus, after your father and you. I hope when you find out, you'll be happy too. Day 45. Marcus, today I felt the baby move for the first time. It was the most incredible feeling of my life. I put my hand on my belly and imagined what it would be like if your hand were here too, feeling our son move. Marcus had to stop reading for a few minutes. The emotion was too much. Reading the detailed account of a pregnancy he had completely missed due to his own stubbornness was devastating. Keep reading, Rebecca encouraged. There are important things further ahead. Marcus returned to the diary. Day 78. Marcus, today I ran into your cousin Christopher at the supermarket. He asked about you and I told him we were separated. Christopher was surprised and said your mother had told the family that I had cheated on you. I explained to him about Jonathan, about the photos, about everything. Christopher said he would talk to you, but asked me not to get my hopes up too much. Marcus vaguely remembered Christopher trying to talk to him about Rebecca a few months back. At the time, he shut it down quickly, said he didn't want to talk about a cheating ex-wife. Christopher tried to insist, but Marcus was rude and told him to stay out of his personal life. Day 92. Christopher called me today, said he tried to talk to you, but you wouldn't listen. Said you are very bitter and will probably need time to process everything. I said I have time. I'll wait as long as it takes. Day 120. Marcus, today was hard. I woke up this morning missing you terribly. I spent time looking at our wedding photos and crying. The baby was restless all day. I think he can feel when I'm sad. I promised him I would try to be stronger. Marcus looked at Rebecca and saw she was crying too. Go on, she whispered. Day 156. Marcus, today I visited your father's grave. I brought flowers and told him about the baby. I know it might sound silly, but I felt like he was listening to me. I left with a greater sense of peace, as if he had given me his blessing. Marcus was surprised. Rebecca visited his father's grave. That showed how much she respected his memory and cared about the family, even after being rejected. Day 189. Marcus, today the doctor said the baby is a bit stressed. He asked if I was going through any emotional difficulties. I explained the situation and he said, I need to try to stay calmer for the child's sake. I'll try, but it's hard. Marcus felt another stab of guilt. His behavior had affected not only Rebecca, but also the health of his own child. Day 234. Marcus, I dreamed about you yesterday. I dreamed we were together in the baby's room, assembling the crib. You were happy, smiling, talking about how you would teach our son to play soccer. I woke up crying because it felt so real. Day 267. Marcus, today I completed 8 months of pregnancy. The baby is big and strong. Sometimes I wonder if he'll have your eyes or mine, if he'll have your temperament or mine. One thing I'm sure of, he will know he has a father who was once very loved by his mother. Marcus had to stop reading again. Rebecca's generosity, even in her situation, was moving. She didn't harbor anger against him, didn't try to make their son hate him. On the contrary, she preserved his image for the unborn child. Rebecca, how can you be so generous after everything I did to you? Because I love you, Marcus, and because this baby needs a father. I didn't want him to grow up hating you because of my resentments. But you had every right to be resentful. I did, and I was for a while. But holding on to bitterness was only hurting me and hurting the baby. So I decided to forgive, not for you, but for us. Marcus returned to the diary. The last entries were more recent. Day 278. Marcus, I think the baby will be born in the next few days. I'm anxious and scared. Scared of doing everything alone, scared something will go wrong. But I'm also hopeful. Our son will be born and he will be perfect. Day 279. Marcus, today I decided something. If labor starts, I'm going to our cabin. I want William to be born in the place where we met. I know it's risky, I know you probably won't be there, but I feel it's the right thing to do. Marcus looked at Rebecca, amazed. You planned all this? I did. I knew it was risky, but I felt it had to be this way. And if I hadn't shown up, I would have delivered the baby alone. I had already prepared for that possibility. Marcus couldn't believe Rebecca's courage. Even pregnant, alone, and abandoned, she had made decisions based on love and hope, not on fear or bitterness. Rebecca, I don't deserve you, he said. It's not about deserving, Marcus, it's about loving. At that moment, the baby woke up and started crying again. Marcus gently rocked him in his arms, trying to soothe him. I think he needs to nurse again, Rebecca said. Marcus handed the baby to her and watched the scene. Seeing his wife breastfeeding their son was one of the most beautiful sights he had ever witnessed. Rebecca, I want us to be a family again, he said. Marcus, I know it won't be easy. I know you have every reason not to trust me. But I've changed. These 8 months taught me the value of what I had and lost. What do you intend to do about your mother? Rebecca asked. It was the question Marcus had been avoiding, but he knew he would have to face it. I will confront her. I will demand that she tell the truth about everything. And if she denies it, then I will cut ties with her. I cannot allow anyone, not even my mother, to destroy our family again. Rebecca looked into his eyes, trying to gauge his sincerity. Marcus, your mother has always had a lot of power over you. How can I be sure you won't let her influence you again? Because now I have you and our son to protect. And because now I know that some bridges have to be burned so others can be built. The baby had finished nursing and fallen asleep again. The cabin was brighter now, with sunlight streaming through the cracks and creating an almost magical atmosphere. There's something else, Rebecca, Marcus said. I want you to know that, even believing I had been betrayed, I never managed to stop loving you. What do you mean? During these 8 months, I didn't get involved with any other woman. Not because I didn't have the opportunity, but because I couldn't. Every time I looked at someone else, I saw you." Rebecca smiled for the first time since they had reunited. "Marcus, I also never managed to stop loving you. Even in the moments when I was most hurt, most disappointed, I kept loving you. So you would give me this second chance?" "I would, but with one condition." "What?" "I want you to seek help. Couples therapy, counseling, anything that helps us rebuild our relationship in a healthy way." "I accept," Marcus replied immediately. "And I want you to cut ties with your mother until she admits what she did and apologizes." Marcus hesitated for a moment. Cutting ties with his own mother was a drastic decision, but he looked at the son in his arms and at the woman who had endured an entire pregnancy alone because of her mother-in-law's lies. "I accept that too," he said. "Are you sure? She is your mother, Marcus, and you are my wife, and he is my son. You are my priority now." Rebecca began to cry with emotion. "Marcus, there's one more thing I need to tell you." "What?" "During these months I kept something of yours." She rummaged in her bag and pulled out an object that Marcus recognized immediately. It was his wedding ring, the same one he had taken off his finger and thrown in the trash on the night of the fight. "How did you get this?" "After you left the house that day, I went back secretly to get some clothes. I saw the ring in the trash and couldn't leave it there." Marcus took the ring in his hands. It was a bit scratched, but it still shone. "Why did you keep it?" "Because a part of me always believed that one day you'd want to put it back on." Marcus held the ring for a few seconds, thinking about everything that had happened since he took it off his finger 8 months ago. Then slowly he slid it back onto his ring finger. "And you?" he asked. "Where's yours?" Rebecca raised her left hand. The ring was still there, in the same place as always. "I could never take it off," she admitted. "I tried a few times, but I always gave up." Marcus held her hand and gently kissed the finger where the ring was. "I promise you'll never have to think about taking it off again." At that moment, they heard the sound of cars approaching outside. Marcus looked through the cracks in the cabin and saw an ambulance and a police car stopping on the road. "How did they know we were here?" Rebecca asked. "I called emergency services before I entered the cabin when I heard you screaming," Marcus explained. "I said there was a woman in labor who needed help. But that was hours ago. With the storm, it must have taken them a while to get here." The paramedics entered the cabin and were surprised to find the situation under control. The baby had been born, was healthy, and both he and the mother seemed well. "You did a good job," one of the paramedics said to Marcus, "but we'll take them to the hospital for some routine checks." During the trip to the hospital, Marcus held Rebecca's hand while she held the baby. For the first time in 8 months, he felt complete. At the hospital, the doctors confirmed that both Rebecca and the baby were healthy. The delivery had proceeded normally, despite the adverse circumstances. "You did an excellent job," the obstetrician told Marcus. "Not everyone can manage a delivery under such difficult conditions. Love gives you strength you didn't know you had," Marcus replied, looking at Rebecca. They stayed in the hospital for 2 days for observation. During that time, Marcus never left Rebecca's and the baby's side. He wanted to make up for all the moments he had missed during the pregnancy. On the second day, his mother showed up at the hospital. Mrs. Elizabeth entered the room with her usual elegant and controlled manner, but Marcus noticed the discomfort in her eyes when she saw Rebecca holding the baby. "Marcus, my son, I heard you were here," she said, completely ignoring Rebecca's presence. "Are you all right?" "I'm great, Mother," Marcus replied coldly. "I just met my son." Mrs. Elizabeth looked at the baby, and Marcus saw that she couldn't completely hide her emotion at seeing her grandson. "He's handsome," she admitted reluctantly. "His name is William Marcus," Marcus said. "A tribute to Grandpa." "Marcus, we need to talk alone," Mrs. Elizabeth said, giving a meaningful look toward Rebecca. "No, Mother. Anything you have to say to me can be said in front of my wife." "Your wife? Marcus, you've been separated for 8 months." "And now we're back together. Forever." Mrs. Elizabeth looked from Marcus to Rebecca and realized something had changed. Her son was no longer willing to listen to her manipulations. "Marcus, You can't be serious. After everything she did. What exactly did she do, Mother? Marcus interrupted. Well, you know very well. The betrayal. What betrayal? The betrayal you made up. Mrs. Elizabeth paled. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the lies you spread about Rebecca, the false witnesses you paid to confirm a betrayal that never existed. Marcus, I don't know where you got these ideas. Mother, I know the truth. I know the man in the photos was Rebecca's cousin. I know you tried to bribe him to lie. I know you did everything to destroy my marriage. Mrs. Elizabeth looked around the room, realizing she was cornered. Marcus, even if some information was exaggerated, I only wanted to protect you. Protect me from what? From this family of opportunists, she exploded. Marcus, you are a wealthy, successful man. That woman only wanted to take advantage of you. Mother, Marcus rose from his chair. Rebecca never asked for a penny from me. She never even accepted my help for her family. She spent 8 months pregnant, working and supporting herself. Because she's clever. She knew that by doing so she'd win your sympathy. Marcus looked at his mother and saw a woman he did not recognize. The possessive love had turned into something cruel and calculating. Mother, you destroyed my family. Because of your lies, I missed 8 months of my child's pregnancy. Because of your lies, my wife suffered alone when she should have had my support. Marcus, I only want what's best for you. No, he shouted. You want to control my life. You can't stand the idea that I could be happy with someone other than you. Rebecca, who had remained silent until then, decided to speak. Mrs. Elizabeth, she said softly, I understand that you are afraid of losing your son. Every mother has that fear when her son gets married. You don't understand anything, Mrs. Elizabeth retorted. I understand more than you think, Rebecca continued, still with a calm voice. I just had a son. I know that one day he will marry and start his own family, and I know I will have to accept that. It's not the same thing. Yes, it is. The difference is that I will do my best to love the woman my son chooses, because if he chose her, it's because she makes him happy, and his happiness is more important than my jealousy. Marcus looked at Rebecca with admiration. Even having been a victim of her mother-in-law's manipulations, she was still trying to calm the situation. Mother, Marcus said, turning his attention back to Mrs. Elizabeth, you have 2 choices. Either admit what you did, ask for forgiveness, and accept Rebecca as part of the family, or you will have no more place in my life. Marcus, you can't be serious. I have never been more serious in my life. You would choose this woman over your own mother? I am not choosing anyone. I am choosing the truth. I am choosing to build my family based on love and trust, not on manipulation and lies. Mrs. Elizabeth looked at her grandson in Rebecca's arms. Marcus noticed she was struggling between pride and love for her grandson. And if I don't accept your conditions, she asked, then you will never see your grandson again. The threat had the desired effect. Mrs. Elizabeth began to cry. Marcus, I only wanted to protect you. Mother, you wanted to control my life. There's a very big difference between protecting and controlling. Mrs. Elizabeth remained silent for a few minutes, looking at the baby. He really looks like you when you were little, she finally said. He looks like the whole Crawford family, Marcus replied. He has Grandpa's birthmark. Can I hold him? She asked hesitantly. Marcus looked at Rebecca, who nodded. Of course, he said, taking the baby and handing him to his mother. Mrs. Elizabeth held her grandson in her arms, and Marcus saw her expression soften. For a moment she seemed like the loving mother he had known in childhood, before bitterness and control took over her personality. He is perfect, she whispered. He is, Marcus agreed, and he will grow up in a united and happy family. Mrs. Elizabeth understood the message. She looked at Rebecca, and for the first time her eyes showed no hostility. Rebecca, she said with difficulty, I am sorry. For what, specifically? Marcus asked. He wanted his mother to fully take responsibility. I apologize for lying about you, for inventing a betrayal that never happened, for paying people to confirm my lies. Rebecca began to cry. "Thank you," she said simply. "May I—" Mrs. Elizabeth hesitated. "May I be part of his life? My grandson's?" Marcus and Rebecca exchanged a look. "You may," Marcus replied, "but with conditions. You will never again try to interfere in our marriage. You will never again make malicious comments about Rebecca, and if I ever discover you are trying to manipulate the situation again, it will be the last time you see any of us." "I accept," Mrs. Elizabeth said, handing the baby back to Rebecca. I am truly sorry for everything." After Mrs. Elizabeth left the room, Marcus and Rebecca were silent for a few minutes. "Do you think she's really changed?" Rebecca asked. "I don't know," Marcus answered honestly. "But I have changed now, and if she tries anything again, I'll know how to handle it." The next day they were discharged from the hospital. Marcus took Rebecca and the baby home, not to the mansion where he lived, but to a new apartment he had rented specifically for them to restart their life together. "Why not your house?" Rebecca asked. "Because I want us to start from scratch. That house has too many bad memories. I want us to build new memories in a new place." In the first few months, the adjustment was difficult. Marcus had to learn to be a father and to divide his attention between work and family. Rebecca had to learn to trust him again, to believe he wouldn't abandon her again. They went to couples therapy, as Rebecca had requested. In the sessions, Marcus learned to identify his patterns of jealousy and insecurity. Rebecca learned to express her needs without fear of rejection. "The foundation of a healthy relationship is communication," the therapist would say. "You need to learn to talk about your fears and insecurities before they turn into resentment." Slowly, they rebuilt their relationship. Marcus became a dedicated father, changing diapers, bathing the baby, waking up in the middle of the night when he cried. Rebecca went back to school, taking a specialization course in obstetric nursing. "I want to help other women who go through what I went through," she explained. Marcus fully supported her decision and even funded her studies. 6 months after William was born, they decided to renew their marriage vows. The ceremony was simple, just for the closest family, and took place in the same cabin where William had been born. Marcus had the place renovated, keeping its rustic feel but making it more comfortable and safe. The cabin became the family's retreat, where they spent weekends and holidays. "This place will always be special to us," Marcus said during the ceremony. "It was here that we met, here that our son was born, and here that we promise once again to love each other forever." On William's first birthday, they held a party at the cabin. Mrs. Elizabeth was present and was visibly trying to be a better mother-in-law and grandmother. She had brought several gifts for her grandson and had even complimented the cake Rebecca made. "You did very well with the decorations," she said to Rebecca, still with some formality, but without hostility. "Thank you," Rebecca replied. "I wanted to do everything with a lot of care." Marcus watched the two women trying to build a cordial relationship. He knew it would never be the friendship he wished for, but it was considerable progress. "Marcus," Rebecca called him aside, "I have a surprise for you." "What surprise?" She placed a pregnancy test in his hand. "We're expecting another baby." Marcus was speechless for a few seconds. Then he smiled and kissed her passionately. "Really?" "Really." 2 months, Marcus shouted with joy, catching the attention of everyone present. "We're going to have another baby," he announced. The whole family celebrated. Mrs. Elizabeth, for the first time, spontaneously hugged Rebecca. "Congratulations, my daughter," she said, and Marcus noticed it was the first time she had referred to Rebecca as her daughter. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. During the second pregnancy, Marcus was the husband and future father he hadn't managed to be the first time. He attended every appointment, set up the baby's room together with Rebecca, read books about motherhood and fatherhood. "This time I'm going to do everything right," he would say. "You did everything right the first time," Rebecca would respond. "You arrived at the right time, at the right place." It was the most special birth a woman could have. Their second child, a girl they named Elizabeth Grace, a tribute to the grandfather and an attempt to include the grandmother in the family, was born in the hospital, without drama, surrounded by love and care. Marcus held his newborn daughter in his arms and looked at Rebecca with eyes full of tears. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For never giving up on us. For forgiving my stupidity, for giving me the most perfect family in the world." "We are a perfect family," Rebecca corrected. "Imperfect, but perfect for us." 2 years later, Marcus sold the company and started a smaller business, one that allowed him to spend more time with his family. They moved to a house near the cabin in the countryside, where the children could grow up close to nature. Rebecca opened a clinic to care for expectant mothers in need, offering free services to women who couldn't afford proper prenatal care. "I don't want any woman to go through pregnancy alone and helpless like I did," she explained. Marcus supported the project and even helped finance the clinic. Surprisingly, Mrs. Elizabeth became a volunteer at the clinic, helping with administrative work and sometimes watching the patient's children during appointments. "Who would have thought my mother would become such a different person?" Marcus commented to Rebecca. "People can change, Marcus. We are proof of that." On their 5th renewed wedding anniversary, they threw a big party at the cabin. Family, friends, patients from Rebecca's clinic, and even the cabin's former owner, Mr. John, who was now retired, were all present. "You've turned this place into a sanctuary of love," said Mr. John. "I'm happy my old workshop became the cradle of such a beautiful family." During the party, Marcus gave a speech. "Friends, 6 years ago, I almost lost the most precious thing in my life because of my insecurity and my pride. 5 years ago, in a storm, fate gave me a second chance. Today, looking at my wife and my children, I know there is no luckier man in the world." He looked at Rebecca, who was holding Elizabeth in her lap while William played at her feet. "Rebecca, thank you for teaching me that true love is stronger than any storm. Thank you for showing me that forgiving is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. Thank you for believing in us when even I didn't believe." The audience applauded, moved. Mrs. Elizabeth discreetly wiped away tears. "Marcus," Rebecca asked to speak. "My love, 6 years ago, you showed me that sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what really matters. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and I wouldn't change a single moment of it, because it's what brought us here." She looked at the children. "William, Elizabeth, when you grow up and ask how your daddy and mommy met, we'll tell you it was in a storm. Not the rainstorm where you were born, but the storm that almost destroyed our family, and that, in the end, made it even stronger." Years passed. William and Elizabeth grew up hearing the story of how they were born in a cabin during a storm, how their parents separated and found each other again, how love overcame pride and distrust. The cabin became a symbol in the region. Couples going through difficulties would come there to talk and reflect. Marcus and Rebecca always welcomed these people with affection, offering advice and sometimes just a friendly ear. "You've become the region's official marriage counselors," Mrs. Elizabeth would joke, who had gradually become a loving grandmother and a respected mother-in-law. Marcus had learned to value the simple things: family breakfasts on weekends, playing with the children in the backyard, the long conversations with Rebecca after the kids fell asleep. Rebecca had become a reference in the field of social obstetrics, being invited to give lectures and attend conferences on humanizing childbirth. Her clinic served hundreds of pregnant women a year and had one of the lowest infant mortality rates in the region. "Everything we lived through had a purpose," she would say. "Our pain became a tool to ease the pain of others." On the 10th anniversary of William's birth, they organized a special party at the cabin. William, now a smart and inquisitive boy, gave the opening speech. "Dad, Mom, thank you for choosing me as your son. Thank you for teaching me that a family isn't perfect, but that love can fix anything that breaks." Marcus and Rebecca looked at each other, moved. Their son had learned the most important lesson of their lives. That night, after everyone had left and the children were asleep, Marcus and Rebecca were alone in the cabin, just as they had been the night William was born. "Do you regret anything?" Marcus asked. "Nothing," Rebecca answered without hesitation. "Not even the difficult moments. They taught us to value the good ones." "I regret one thing," Marcus said. "What?" Missing 8 months of your first pregnancy. Not being with you when you needed me most. Marcus, Rebecca held his face in her hands, you arrived at the right time. If you had come earlier, our son wouldn't have been born here, in this special place. If you had come later, perhaps we wouldn't have managed to reconcile. Do you think it was fate? I think it was love. Love always finds a way. They held each other, listening to the sounds of the night in the countryside. Crickets chirping, wind rustling the trees, the silence that only the countryside can offer. Marcus, Rebecca said softly, there's something I never told you. What? That night when you found me here, I wasn't as scared as I seemed. Why? Because a part of me knew you would come. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But I knew you would come. How could you be sure? Because you loved me. And those who truly love always find their way back. Marcus kissed the woman he had almost lost because of his own pride and the manipulation of others. The woman who had forgiven his flaws and given him not just a second chance but a lifetime of opportunities to be a better man. I love you, he whispered. I love you too, she replied. I always have. Even when I shouldn't have. Even when it seemed impossible, I always loved you. The next morning they took the children to visit Grandpa William's grave. It was a family tradition they kept every year on the grandson's birthday. Grandpa William, the boy said, placing flowers on the grave. Mom and Dad say you would have been very happy to see me. He would have been proud of both of you, Marcus said, addressing his children. Grandpa always said that family is the most important thing in life. Why did Grandpa die? Elizabeth asked, with the innocent curiosity of a 5-year-old. Because he was old and sick, Rebecca explained. But he is still alive in our hearts and in the good memories we have of him. Can he see us from where he is? William wanted to know. I believe so, Marcus answered, and I believe he is very happy seeing how close and happy our family is. On the way back home, William asked a question that took his parents by surprise. Daddy, why were you and Mommy separated before I was born? Marcus and Rebecca exchanged glances. They had talked about how to approach this subject with the children when they were older, but they didn't expect William to ask so soon. Well, son, Marcus began, sometimes adults make mistakes. Daddy made a very big mistake and hurt Mommy. What kind of mistake? Daddy didn't trust Mommy when he should have trusted her, Marcus explained, simplifying the story for a 10-year-old's understanding. And then you fought? Yes, we fought. And Daddy was very foolish and made Mommy leave the house. But did you love each other? We always loved each other, Rebecca interjected. Even when we were fighting, we still loved each other. Then why didn't you talk and make up? Because sometimes pride doesn't let us do the right thing, Marcus admitted. Daddy was too ashamed to admit he was wrong. William thought for a few seconds. So was I born so you could make up? Marcus and Rebecca laughed. Maybe, Rebecca said. You were our miracle that brought the family back together. Cool, William smiled. Was Elizabeth a miracle too? All children are miracles, Marcus replied. You two are the greatest gifts God gave us. That night, Marcus helped William with his English homework. The theme was my family. Daddy, can I write about how I was born? Of course, son, but write it in a way your classmates can understand. William began to write, My family is special because my daddy and my mommy love each other very much. I was born in a cabin during a storm, and that's why my parents always say I am a child of the storm. They met in the same cabin many years ago. My sister Elizabeth was born in the hospital, but she is also a child of love. My parents taught me that when people truly love each other, they always find a way to stay together, even when difficult things happen. Marcus read what his son had written and felt his eyes fill with tears. It's perfect, son. Daddy, when I grow up and get married, I want to have a family just like ours. And you will, Marcus said, hugging the boy. You will be an even better father than I am. How do you know? Because you already know from a young age what is most important in life. Daddy took a very long time to learn that. 2 weeks later, Marcus received a phone call that would once again change the course of their lives. Marcus? It was the voice of his cousin Christopher. "Hi, Christopher. Is everything okay?" "Marcus, I need to tell you something important. It's about your mother." Marcus felt a tightness in his chest. "What happened?" "She is sick, Marcus. Cancer. Advanced stage." Marcus was silent for a few seconds, processing the information. "How long has she known?" "She found out 2 months ago, but she didn't want to worry you. She asked me not to tell, but I thought you had the right to know." "How is she?" "She is in St. Michael's Hospital. The doctors said that there isn't much they can do. Maybe a few months." Marcus hung up the phone and stood still for several minutes, trying to sort through his feelings. Despite all the problems he had with his mother, she was still his mother. And now she was sick, possibly dying. "What happened?" Rebecca asked, noticing her husband's state of shock. Marcus told her about the phone call. Rebecca listened in silence and then hugged her husband. "Let's go visit her," she said simply. "Are you sure? After everything she did?" "Marcus, she is your mother, and she is our children's grandmother. Regardless of past mistakes, she is sick and alone now." Marcus looked at the woman who had been a victim of his mother's manipulations and who was now willing to forgive and forget. "You are amazing," he said. "I'm not amazing. I just learned that holding a grudge only hurts the one who holds it." The next day, Marcus, Rebecca, and their 2 children went to visit Mrs. Elizabeth at the hospital. She was visibly more fragile, thinner, but her eyes lit up when she saw her grandchildren. "William! Elizabeth!" she called, extending her arms. The children ran to hug their grandmother. Marcus was moved to see the genuine affection between them. "Grandma, why are you in the hospital?" Elizabeth asked. "Grandma is a little sick, my love, but I'm very happy when you come to visit me." Marcus approached the bed. "Mom, why didn't you tell me about the illness?" "Because I didn't want to spoil your happiness," Mrs. Elizabeth replied. "You're doing so well with a beautiful family. I didn't want to bring sadness into your lives. Mom, regardless of the problems we had, I love you. You are my mother." Mrs. Elizabeth began to cry. "Marcus, I am so sorry for everything I did. If I could turn back time." "You don't need to turn back time," Rebecca interrupted. "What matters is the present and the future." "Rebecca, you are an angel," Mrs. Elizabeth said. "I don't deserve your kindness after all I did." Everyone deserves forgiveness when they are truly sorry. During the following weeks, Marcus and Rebecca visited Mrs. Elizabeth daily. They brought the children, brought flowers, kept her company. Marcus even temporarily transferred his business dealings to be closer to his mother. "Marcus," Mrs. Elizabeth said one of the last days, "I want to ask you a favor." "Anything, Mum." "I want you to forgive me officially." "I already forgave you, Mum." "No, I want you to say the words. I need to hear them." Marcus held his mother's fragile hand. "Mum, I forgive you for everything that happened. I forgive you for the lies, the manipulation, for trying to destroy my family. I forgive you because I love you, and because I know you did all that out of fear of losing me." Mrs. Elizabeth wept profusely. "Thank you, my son. Now I can go in peace." "Don't talk like that, Mom." "Marcus, I am going, and it's okay. I will go knowing you have the most beautiful family in the world, knowing my grandchildren are wonderful children, knowing you became the man your father wanted you to be." Mrs. Elizabeth passed away on a Tuesday morning in her sleep without suffering. Marcus was holding her hand when she left. At the funeral, Marcus made sure it was a beautiful ceremony, worthy of the woman who, despite her flaws, had been a dedicated mother throughout his childhood and youth. "My mother was a complex woman," he said in his speech. "She made big mistakes, but she was also able to recognize them and redeem herself. In the end, she learned that true love does not control, does not manipulate, does not possess. True love sets you free." After the funeral, the family gathered at the cabin. It was the place they always went when they needed peace and reflection. "Daddy, did Grandma go to the same place as Grandpa William?" asked Elizabeth. "I believe so, my daughter," Marcus replied. "And I believe she is well, without pain, without worries." "Will she look after us from up there?" William asked. "I'm sure she will," Rebecca said. "Grandma loved us very much. even when she didn't know how to show it properly. That night, Marcus and Rebecca talked at length about forgiveness, about family, about how relationships can be complex, and how love can overcome even the greatest obstacles. "Rebecca," Marcus said, "thank you for teaching me to forgive my mother." "You don't have to thank me. Forgiveness was your choice. But you showed me the way. If you, who were the biggest victim of her manipulations, could forgive, how could I not? Forgiveness isn't about the person who did wrong, Marcus. Forgiveness is about the person who forgives. When we forgive, we free our own heart from the weight of resentment." Marcus hugged his wife, admiring her wisdom. "How did you become so wise?" "Suffering teaches a lot," she replied, "and love teaches even more." Some months after Mrs. Elizabeth's death, Marcus made an important decision. "Rebecca, I want to sell all the businesses in Charlotte and move here for good," he announced. "Are you sure? You built all that over many years." "I'm sure. I want our children to grow up here, close to nature, far from the stress of the big city. And I want to dedicate myself more to the clinic and the social projects." "And financially? We have enough savings to live well for the rest of our lives, and I can start some smaller business here in the region, something that lets me stay close to the family." Rebecca smiled. "I would love that." The move brought a new phase of happiness for the family. Marcus opened a small consulting business that operated from home, allowing him to work without being away from the children. Rebecca expanded the clinic and began also serving women from neighboring towns. William and Elizabeth adapted perfectly to country life. They made new friends at the local school, learned to ride horses, to fish in the nearby river, to identify plants and animals. "Dad," William said one afternoon while they were fishing together, "I like living here more than in the city." "Why?" "Because here we have more time to talk, to play together. In the city you were always busy." Marcus realized his 11-year-old son had made a very mature observation. "You're right, son. Life here is simpler, calmer." "And the cabin is so close," Elizabeth added. The cabin remained the family's meeting place. Every Sunday they had lunch there, received friends, celebrated birthdays, and important dates. Marcus had installed electricity and a small kitchen, but kept the rustic and cozy atmosphere. The walls now had family photos, the wedding, the children's births, special moments over the years. "This cabin tells our whole story," Rebecca would always say. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Marcus prepared a surprise for Rebecca. He completely renovated her clinic, expanded the space, bought new equipment, and hired more staff. "Now you can serve even more women," he said on the reopening day. "Marcus, this must have cost a fortune." "It did, but every penny was worth it. You saved our family, now you can save other families too." Rebecca's clinic became a reference in the region. She served not only pregnant women, but also offered family planning, cervical cancer prevention, and psychological support for women suffering domestic violence. "My work is to care for women in vulnerable situations," she would explain, "because I know what it's like to be vulnerable and helpless." Marcus was proud of his wife. She had transformed her pain into purpose, her suffering into compassion for others. "You are my inspiration," he would say. "We are inspiration for each other," she would reply. On William's 16th birthday, he made an unusual request to his parents. "I want you to tell our whole story, all of it, hiding nothing." "Why do you want to know everything?" Marcus asked. "Because my school friends have complicated families, with separated parents, fights, problems. I want to understand how you managed to solve the problems and stay together." Marcus and Rebecca exchanged a look. William was becoming a mature young man, concerned not only with himself, but with others too. "All right," Marcus agreed. "We'll tell you everything." That night in the cabin, Marcus and Rebecca told their children the whole story. The separation, grandmother Elizabeth's lies, the 8 months of lonely pregnancy, the reunion in the storm, the reconciliation, the difficulties of rebuilding the relationship. William and Elizabeth listened to everything in silence, asking occasional questions but absorbing every detail. "So Grandma Elizabeth lied about Mom?" Elizabeth asked. "She did," Marcus admitted, Because she was afraid of losing Dad to another family. And you believed the lies without letting Mom explain herself? William questioned. I did. It was the biggest mistake of my life. But in the end, it all worked out, Elizabeth observed. It worked out because Dad and Mom truly loved each other, Marcus explained. And because Mom was able to forgive Dad for the mistakes he made. And because you both fought to rebuild the family, Rebecca added. What did you learn from all this? William asked. Marcus and Rebecca thought for a few seconds before answering. I learned that trust is the foundation of any relationship, Marcus said, and that pride can destroy the most precious things in our life. I learned that forgiveness is not an act of weakness but of strength, Rebecca added, and that true love always finds a way to win. And what do you want us to learn from this story? Elizabeth asked. We want you to learn that everyone makes mistakes, Marcus answered. But that the important thing is to recognize the mistakes, ask for forgiveness and do your best to fix them. And we want you to learn that family is the most precious thing there is, Rebecca added. It's worth fighting for, it's worth forgiving for, it's worth starting over for. Will you tell this story to our children when we have children? William asked. Of course, Marcus smiled. It's our family's story, and every family needs to know its own story. 2 years later, William brought a girlfriend to meet the family. Emily was a sweet girl from a simple family who studied with him at the local school. Dad, Mom, I want you to meet Emily, he said, clearly nervous. Marcus and Rebecca welcomed the girl warmly, but Marcus noticed some similarities with his own story, the son from a more well-off family being interested in a girl of humble origins. Welcome to our family, Emily, Rebecca said, hugging the girl. During dinner, Marcus watched how William treated his girlfriend with affection and respect. The boy had learned the lessons from his parents' story. Emily, do you know the cabin where William was born? Marcus asked. No, sir. But he told me the whole story. I think it's very romantic. Romantic? Marcus laughed. It was quite dramatic at the time. But your love overcame everything, Emily said with admiration. Marcus looked at Rebecca and smiled. Their story had become a local legend, an example that true love can overcome any obstacle. Dad, William said after Emily left, can I ask a personal question? Sure. How did you know Mom was the woman for you? Marcus thought for a few seconds. I knew when I lost her, he answered honestly. Sometimes we only discover the value of something when we don't have it anymore. But there must be other signs, right? There must be. Why do you want to know? William blushed a little. Because I think I'm in love with Emily. Marcus smiled. The son was only 18 years old, but he already showed an emotional maturity that he himself hadn't had at that age. Son, when you truly love someone, you want to protect that person, take care of them, make sacrifices for them. You want them to be happy, even if sometimes that means letting go of what you want. And how do I know if she feels the same about me? By the way she looks at you, by the way she worries about you, by how she acts when you're together. She's special, Dad. I can see that. And you're special too, son. You learned early on the value of family, of love, of commitment. I learned by watching you. Marcus hugged his son, moved. I'm proud of the man you're becoming. 3 years later, William and Emily got married. The ceremony was at the cabin, of course, with all the family and friends present. Marcus was his son's best man, and Rebecca was the bride's matron of honor. During the ceremony, Marcus remembered his own wedding 20 years earlier. William and Emily, he said in his speech, you are starting a new family in a place that is very special to us. This cabin saw the beginning of love between me and your mother. It saw your births. It saw our family form and grow. He looked around, seeing the people he loved gathered in that sacred place for them. May you build a love story even more beautiful than ours. May you face the storms hand in hand. May you never forget that true love isn't perfect, but it is true. During the party, Elizabeth, now 16, approached her parents. Dad, Mum, when I get married, I want it to be here too. And what if your future husband doesn't agree? Rebecca joked. Then he's not the right man for me, Elizabeth replied, determined. Marcus laughed. You've learned the family lessons well. I learned that there's a place in the world where love always wins. And that place is here. 2 years later, Marcus and Rebecca celebrated 25 years of marriage. The party was grand, with people from several neighboring towns who knew the couple's story in attendance. During the celebration, they received a special tribute. The city council decided to turn the cabin into a local historical landmark, recognizing its importance as a symbol of love and reconciliation. "Marcus and Rebecca Crawford," said the town mayor. "You have turned a simple structure into a symbol that true love can overcome any adversity. May your story inspire other families to never give up fighting for their relationships." Marcus held Rebecca's hand as they listened to the tribute speeches. "Can you believe our story has come this far?" he whispered to her. "I can," she replied, "because I always knew our love was special." That night, after everyone had left, Marcus and Rebecca stayed alone in the cabin, as they always did in the most important moments of their lives. "Rebecca, if I could go back in time, I'd do everything the same. Even the mistakes? Especially the mistakes, because they brought us here." "I don't know if I'd do everything the same," Rebecca reflected. "I think I'd try to reach out to you more times. I'd insist more for you to listen to me. And I should have listened to you from the first time. But it happened as it had to happen," she concluded. "William was born here. Our family came together here. Our story was completed here." Marcus looked around the cabin. The walls were now covered in photos, weddings, births, birthdays, graduations. The entire family history was there, preserved in that simple but meaningful place. "You know what moves me most about our story?" he asked. "What?" "That it doesn't end with us. It will continue with our children, our grandchildren. This cabin will see other generations of the Crawford family be born and grow. And they will all learn that true love is worth any sacrifice, that forgiveness is worthwhile, that starting over is worthwhile, that fighting is worthwhile." They held each other in silence, listening to the sounds of the night. They didn't need to say anything more. They had built something solid, lasting, based on true love and mutual forgiveness. Outside it began to rain. A gentle rain, different from the storm that brought them together decades ago. Now the rain brought no drama or separation. It brought only the tranquility of knowing they had weathered every storm life had placed in their path. "The rain," Rebecca observed. "Like that night," Marcus remembered. "But now it's different. Now it's peace." Marcus kissed the woman he had almost lost, the woman who forgave him, the woman with whom he built the most beautiful family in the world. "I love you," he said. "I love you too," she replied. "Forever." The rain continued to fall gently on the cabin, where a love story had been reborn, where a family had reunited, where forgiveness had conquered pride, and where true love had proven it can overcome any storm. End of story. And now, dear listeners, we want to know your opinion on this moving story of Marcus and Rebecca. Do you believe forgiveness can truly rebuild a family after so much suffering? Leave in the comments which part of the story touched your heart the most. And if you know any couple who has gone through similar difficulties, share with us. Don't forget to leave a like if the story moved you, and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories like this one. Thank you very much for joining us.